up, they're pretending that they don't know, what happened to him, but
Right,
they
right.
it's like they're best of friends, and I guess they're gonna take their secret to the grave
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what happened.
And so Emily was forthcoming about the abuse, but that's it.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Mhm.
as we learn more about the Atonement series, that'll be uncovered for sure. Thank you so much. I just, you taught me a couple of things because I was under the impression that other people knew, but that's even more intriguing that
Mhm.
no one else knew. And then she told her friend, Nicole. So she's like I guess if you could say, a bystander in a good way.
Yeah, she's a
Supportive.
bystander, and then she's helping her get. She immediately jumps in to help her get out of the situation.
Hmm.
So
Excellent,
they don't tell
excellent.
anybody. It's just their secret.
Thank you so much. Now, I want to circle back around with Brandon and Michelle about the community aspect of this, the community involvement. If you could maybe share a little bit about some of the community resources that that are available, or what people should do, or so we'll start with Brandon I know you have your consulting business, and I'm not sure if that's appropriate to bring up right now, but when you encounter someone that is a survivor, let's say, I know you had mentioned earlier, and I thought that was so great when you said that we provide them with resources. So let's revisit that just for a couple seconds or a couple minutes, and then we'll let Michelle respond to that too.
Yeah, so what I would say to that, Daniel, and I take many calls in my role, and I actually do so and let the person remain anonymous, right? Because then we don't have to worry about mandatory arrest laws and things of that nature, because I just want to get them to where they need to go. And really, sometimes that's me, sometimes it isn't. But really, like, if I could put a plug for community-based advocacy, this is where I'd put it, because that survivor can go to those advocates and share everything there is to share and not have worries or fears about where that information is going to go next, right? That person is truly just there to listen and support and help. And so if I could say anything on this topic relative to, how do we, as a community, how do we approach this issue? How do we approach, right, cultural silence, bystander effect? It all starts with community-based advocacy. And really, I think as a justice system, as a law enforcement officer, we must recognize that community-based advocacy is where the life-saving work really happens, and we just get to contribute sometimes, which is nice. But really, it's the community-based advocates that do the lion's share of the work, and I'm super grateful for them.
Awesome. And Michelle, would you like to add to that as well from a community advocacy standpoint, and some of the resources that are available in the community for victims, and even for the abusers themselves, perhaps, if you have some information about that?
Sure, sure. And I just put something in the chat. So we do have a resource page because we have people that reach out to us across the DMV area and even across the country as they move outside of Washington, D.C. Um, but we take the approach again, as Brandon is sharing too, of really providing a network, a safety net, if you would, for the individual. So yes, there's the law piece, but we also need the healthcare and the medical piece. We also need to make sure that they are fine wellness too, because many times going through those dynamics, people are nutritionally, mentally, and emotionally depleted. And so we also have a network of referrals for nutritionalists and counselors and even childcare therapists, because children go through certain traumas too, witnessing the behaviors of their parents, even if it's not just physical, but even the verbal altercations and the emotional disruption. So if you go to timetofly.org, that's our site, under resources, you'll see there just a host of different links and places that we partner with, and we all come together because this is a community effort to help a family move from unhealthy behaviors to healthy behavior patterns. Because if we don't catch it along the way, it is going to snowball and it's going to repeat itself. And we've had children come through our program where I know literally I've had to pay for repairs in walls because, you know, a young boy is punching a hole in the wall because he's upset that dad's in prison. So,
Yeah.
but now that same young man who does come to mind, he's now in school to be a counselor because he's now of
Wow.
age to recognize, wow, my dad's behaviors came from what he saw when he was a little boy. So he was able to connect the dots, and we're able to help him break the cycle just with the resources available. So it's coming
Wow.
together as a network and letting people know that there is hope when you're ready and willing to want to change. Look at the options and that it's always your choice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for that information. And Jennifer, do you have any additional information that you want to add? I know I keep referring to you, obviously, because you're an actor in the Atonement series, but just to kind of round out this discussion, and then we'll move on to our general Q&A.
Well, I have witnessed a lot of domestic violence abuse. I haven't been a victim of it, but I have witnessed it. And I know that it is very difficult for the victims to get out of these abusive situations. A lot of times, the people that they're partnered with won't leave them alone and they won't take no for an answer. So that goes back to what Michele was saying about how they end up going back to these people 7 times, an average of 7 times. And it is true that when they're leaving, that is the most dangerous, or when they're planning to leave, that's the most dangerous time, because if the abuser knows that they're on their way out, they will that will escalate the situation. And then sometimes they get out and then they reel them back in and it starts all over again. And it's a vicious cycle. So I'm glad that we have these types of discussions, and there are programs like with Miss Jones to help these people, help these families, just get away from these abusive people. I'm really, really happy about it. And I'm glad to be a part of this Atonement series. And it's, it's something incredible.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. Thank you so much. So we want to hear from you. I don't know if we have any questions in the chat, Prestige, anything
Yeah,
as far as the
so
question?
no questions in the chat, but I do have a couple of questions just to continue the conversation and wrap it up here. Thank you so much to the panelists for being here and sharing your insight and expertise about the complexities of domestic violence and coming out on the other side. I want to kind of just address within the first topic, talking about the invisible chains. When we're talking about safety planning, I know it's important that you have to understand the depth of the situation to kind of understand and meet victims where they are. So, Brandon and Michele, if you could just touch on whoever wants to go first is fine, but your unique approach to creating a safe space so that victims and people in this situation, they feel comfortable enough with sharing so that you can get the details that you need. What is your unique approach?
We'll have Brandon go first because again, we're approaching it from different aspects. I call it the timeline. So we're coming in at different points. So we'll start with his point, and then I'll share with you my point where we're called into play. So do you want to go first, Brandon?
Of course, Michele, thank you. So yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, when a survivor gets to me and when a survivor gets to you, the situation are typically pretty different, right? So when I'm sitting down with a survivor of intimate partner violence, the number one thing that I want to do for them is give them back control, right? Because as Michele touched on earlier in the interview or in this panel, domestic violence, if you could distill it down, domestic violence is power and control, right? That is the whole thing right there, if we really wanted to distill it. And so as the law enforcement officer, the number one priority of mine is to give them the control back. And so, right, I'm going to tell them at the beginning, hey, this is your experience, and I'm just grateful that you're willing to share it with me, right? I have no expectations of you. There's nothing that you're going to say that's going to be wrong. There's nothing you're going to say that I'm going to judge you for. This is really your experience, and I want you to guide it, right? I want you to dictate as much as you can your interaction with the justice system. But obviously at the beginning, right, especially with intimate partner violence, I also am very clear with them up front that, hey, anything you share with me, right, could lead to the arrest of your abusive partner. And if you're not prepared for that to happen, if it's not safe for that to happen, just understand that I have a legal obligation to follow through if I have probable cause. And so, but again, that gives them the control back, right? Because they don't have to share everything with me. I want them to know what they can expect from me, right? The second most important part of this is no surprises, right? They have enough surprises with their world day to day. I do my level best to make sure that there are no secrets, no surprises, that they know tangibly what's going to happen next. And so when you create that sort of an environment, that's when you do get the disclosure, and that's when you build trust with the community member, because it's not about prosecution, right? The whole concept of the multidisciplinary approach is we're survivor centered, we're survivor focused, and keeping them safe. Sometimes prosecution is part of it, sometimes it isn't.
Michele?
Yeah. So when we enter center stage, it's typically, and Time to Fly, we are focused as a prevention and intervention mission. Prevention and intervention. So what do we do? What can we do to prevent it? And how can we intervene so the cycle doesn't continue and that we can help break these patterns? So on the larger scale, the macro scale, we work with churches, synagogues, faith houses, to even put bulletins in the women's room. Hey, here's some resources. Okay, so they know that there's a safe place. We also talk about how to destigmatize this, because that's where it does hold its power, that, oh, I can't tell anyone, oh, I'm the only one. But when we begin to destigmatize this, to say, hey, this is the same really as having an overweight problem. We need help. So by helping an individual realize, hey, it's okay for me to say SOS, and then to identify the safe parties to say SOS. Because if you're going to share it with a cousin and the cousin is going to go back and tell him or her, that's not a good fit, all right? So we talk about the practicalities of who's a safe place, who's a safe space. And actually, I just grabbed a copy in my office here before coming on board, is a lot of these keys I've shared in my book, Your Call to Freedom. And this book has gone across to 17 countries. Women from around the globe in every issue and economic social circle of life have read and used this book in their communities to help either educate a family member or friend, their employer, or their faith leaders on what to say and what not to say and how to help a family. And there's endorsements here by pastors and bishops and counselors and the legal community as to how to come alongside people to prevent something from going to a catastrophic level. So this is something I highly recommend. And then there's a host of resources in the book, but it literally is a guidebook, a handbook of how to heal yourself, but also what to say and what not to say to that family member or friend that you love and you care about. And you really want to see them get on a restorative path and not be on antidepressants for the rest of their life. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Michele and Brandon. And thank you, Prestige, for that question. Circling back, really appreciate that. We're going to move a little quickly here. It's a minute after 7. Don't want to hold you too long. We want to take a moment to honor our legacy supporters. We want to take a moment to acknowledge them, the legacy supporters of the Atonement Series. Through their generous gifts, these donors made it possible for Movie Mad Entertainment to start this important film project called the Atonement Series. A special heartfelt thank you to the following: Dr. Betty L. Anthony, Keith Blount, Dr. Robert Klein, Roderick Edwards, Marcel Gooden, Stacy Holmes, Talia Moore, Fakisha Napier Claiborne, Kedron Payne, Jerry Sun, and Tim Teal. Thank you all so much.